mercury is more common nowadays. Lead is not as much of a problem, but today mercury is very common. People either have it from their teeth, it's coming from the seafood, it comes from the air. Who knows? Like there could be spraying it in the air, and we're all getting exposed to it on a constant level because everyone has some sort of form of some low level or some to a degree of level of mercury in their body, and it's coming from somewhere in the environment.
Okay.
Because there is no test of the blood to show mercury because it doesn't really just circulate in the blood. If it's in the body, it's in the tissues, it's stored. It's hiding. So it doesn't really go in the blood. You can't do a blood test to see mercury. Feeling fatigue, when you have fatigue all the time, when you're tired all the time and you don't have energy, that leads to anxiety. That leads to depression. It could be either way. It could go both ways. It depends on the person and their personality and their energy level.
Welcome to the Gamma Seeker broadcast. My name is Brooke, and I have the honor and privilege of introducing to you my personal doctor, my own naturopath, Dr. Bernardo Valero. And
hello.
This is kind of exciting for me, Bernie. We've known each other since we were kids, and we've both circled in and out of different opportunities in life, and here we are, both worried and feeling the same need in humanity as adults, and coming to similar but different conclusions. And you have recently come upon something that you termed a miracle. And I know that you've been experimenting with a lot of different protocols and sequences. So this conversation can go a million ways.
It's true.
I'm excited to introduce people to you. I think that you're brilliant. I think that you're riding a frontier and an edge in health science and detoxing protocols. And I'm very excited to introduce people to you. And I know that we're going to dive deep into the science. But first, could you give some of our viewers a little bit of a background of who you are, what it means to be a doctor the way that you are?
Sure. Thanks for that beautiful intro, Brooke. And it's so wonderful to be with you here today. Thanks for inviting me on your podcast. So I'm Bernie. My patients have always known me as Dr. Bernie. So I've started doing this naturopathic thing ever since I left Miami in 2012 to go to naturopathic school. Since then, I've been traveling. I've been living from state to state until for about 10 years. 2012 to 2, I was from Arizona to California, then to Alaska for a little while. And I've been practicing naturopathic medicine, working at different clinics, actually even working different specialties, different styles. In the past, I've done regenerative medicine, which is using stem cells and PRP injections and things for joint health and to help rehabilitate and restore tendons, ligaments, and help to rebuild collagen, even for the skin as well. So like, those vampire facials people do, like that's all regenerative medicine. And those things are great. I like it. It's really holistic. It's really natural, and it improves people's quality of life. It's a good therapy, but they cost a lot of money. There's no insurance that covers these things. And in a way that kind of describes my career in a way, because as much as I love this medicine and I know it's necessary and I know there's good healing modalities that we have that are natural and that are non-invasive and can help people heal, in the end of the day, it's been such a struggle because insurance doesn't cover a lot of these therapies. And then there's also the licensure from state to state. It's always a little different. So when I went from California to Alaska, I was not able to do injection therapies anymore. But now I can do chiropractic adjustments. So I had to kind of continue to evolve and change as I moved from one clinic to another. And it's given me a lot of different skills and knowledge. So I do have a good rounded approach on my thinking process as a naturopath. And I guess what I've come to now is more of a online practice because now I'm in Florida. I'm back home where I wanted to be in the end of the day. And I was always hoping I could be in Florida because, that's where I'm from. And I feel at home here. I feel this like Latin American community here is something that I feel close with. Anyway, the rest of the country where I've lived is very different from Miami. So it'd be nice to bring this medicine that I've learned from where I used to live to back to Miami, because here there's not a lot of doctors that are naturopaths. There's actually almost zero. You will hardly ever find a naturopath in Florida because it's very highly regulated here. We can't technically practice as a naturopath, and you can actually go to jail for
like
being a naturopath in Florida.
You can go to jail for being a naturopath in Florida?
If you diagnose and treat a disease as a naturopath, you can get sued and go to jail.
And we have so many thousands of plastic surgeons down here. What an interesting microculture.
Doing bad medicine, doing like hurting people, and like the things that I do are so non-invasive and non-harming that it's ridiculous to think that we're so regulated and considered dangerous to a lot of doctors who don't think we should be practicing. But yeah, so my practice has evolved so much over time, but being one that I do online now, I'm able to help people in a lot of ways still, because what I've found is going back to the gut and the metabolism is usually where a lot of the diseases, chronic illnesses start, and detox too, because some people just have a lifetime of accumulating just overall oxidative stress and toxicity and cellular toxicity. So how do we deal with this is actually through lifestyle, through nutrition, through how we approach every day. So I've found that I don't need to actually even touch the patient to listen to them and to help them. So online, I'm able to do a lot. So that's kind of where I'm at now, doing gut health and detox. And here in Florida, I actually have a partner also that I've been working with, who's an MD. And together with him, we're building a business together where I have access to more therapies. So,
and that's for Florida licensure, like that. Does that include the people that you work with online?
That business is going to be a hybrid business. That one's called ChelationDoctors.com. That's where people can find me professionally, and they can see what we're up to and participate, go and find out more, and actually become a patient if they want. But that being a hybrid business, there are locations they would need to interact with. So there's a location in Plantation, Doral, and in Miami, downtown Miami, where if they were in those areas, we would be able to work with them. But the idea behind this business is to work with more clinics throughout the country, so we can actually get patients from anywhere. So that's, as it grows, that's the idea behind Chelation Doctors. To see me personally at this point, because it's something that I have been trying to figure out with the legalities, I've been able to do it on one-on-one basis. I haven't necessarily built, I worked on a website for a while, but I've changed what I was doing, so I removed that website. So to find me now is just find me on Instagram, and if somebody wants to work with me, I'm definitely willing to start that conversation. But again, I'm not nobody's doctor. I can't technically diagnose or treat their disease. I'm mostly like a consult educator, working to improve their health, help them with detox, help them with understanding how, what is their disease, what is inflammation. It's an educational process to help them, guide them to health, guide them to wholeness, guide them to feeling no more pain, feeling their brain works better, their memory, their energy. All of that it goes back to the core of metabolism. It goes back to our cellular health. So I really focus on cellular health, and gut health is a big part of it. And it really, it works on every part of the body by doing that.
What do you think is the most overlooked part of health?
It's a good question. I would say for everyone, it's a little different. Everybody has their vices, their weaknesses. For each person, I think it's important to learn that unique part of themselves to see where they're struggling with their health. But in this country, in this current modern day, I would say metabolic disease is the number one. It's funny because metabolic disease is actually the outcome of a lot of different things. Like, for example, lead toxicity back when in the 1960s, when there was lead in the air and there was lead in the paint in the walls, and lead was a problem. It was in the water, lead pipes. It still is in some areas. And even though lead is a toxic element that causes problems, in the end of the day, the reason that it's causing those problems is metabolic. So by removing the lead, the metabolism improved. And what were the problems people had from lead? Diabetes and heart disease. The same problems we have today, which are metabolic and they're not necessarily caused by lead today, but they're still metabolic. So by treating someone's metabolism, you're actually getting to the root of their health, the root of their energy, the root of maybe their brain fog or their skin health or their vision. Maybe they have glaucoma. All of this comes back to metabolism and detox and getting the cell to work and to have its functions properly through its metabolism. So all the functions of the cell really come down to how well is its metabolism. And so
For
by
people who haven't heard about like metabolic health or people talking about detox, can we break down, like you've said some big words, and I just kind of want to slow it down so that we
sure,
can be
sure.
there for every conscious level.
Hmm.
You mentioned the word chelation and then metabolic. Can we
Hmm.
even take that down an extra level as if we were talking to a 12-year-old?
Okay. Yeah. So what's happening with these toxins in the body? When you have, let's say, mercury, for example. Mercury is more common nowadays. Lead is not as much of a problem, but today mercury is very common. People either have it from their teeth, it's coming from the seafood, it comes from the air. Who knows? Like there could be spraying it in the air, and we're all getting exposed to it on a constant level because everyone has some sort of form of some low level or some to a degree of level of mercury in their body, and it's coming from somewhere in the environment. Could be vaccines, honestly. The shots that kids get have thimerosal in them. That is mercury. Now, some people detox that mercury better than others. It's very toxic. Mercury is super toxic to the body. It just causes problems in the cell. For example, what's happening is oxidative stress. So, what does that mean? That molecule goes in and causes oxidation. So it's transferring electrons and just causing problems. And that electron transfer is ruining the ability for the cell to make energy and also to have a process of removing toxic waste products. So not only waste products, but elements from the environment that are toxic that the cells are constantly working to remove. Mercury kind of like makes that process really difficult because it just overburdens the cell with oxidative stress. So, oxidation, our body is constantly trying to balance by doing something called antioxidant. So, antioxidants are either in our food or our body has to make it inside the cell in order to balance out the stress from oxidation. That's like basically aging is from oxidative stress. If we didn't have any oxidative stress, we wouldn't have stress. We wouldn't have any sort of weight on our body, any sort of, it's the thing that makes us have damage. And then that damage has to be repaired. And our DNA is constantly under stress, and it's called oxidative stress. So,
When I think of that, I think of a cell that's being battered, and every time it gets hit by like these inflammatory agents, it rusts up a little bit, and then that rust
rust.
keeps it from like pooping or being hydrated. So there's this like car damage that's like getting dented, and then the antioxidants, when they bang against the cell, it kind of like
Hmm.
rehydrates it, nourishes it, fixes it a
Yep.
little bit. That's
That's
like
a
my
great way to look
image.
at it. That's a great way to look. Yeah, yeah. You could think of it like the cell is just shriveled up and having a hard time when it has
Yeah.
too much oxidative stress and it's just like struggling to do its normal functions. Now, when you remove mercury, for example, if you can, that cell is going to have a large burden that is gone. That burden being gone now allows it to do its normal functions a lot more easily, including removing other toxins that it's having to normally do. So our cells produce waste products all the time. Like, for example, carbon dioxide. It wants to remove that carbon dioxide. It needs to go through the cell walls. There's other, like lactic acid is another waste product that needs to get removed from the cell. These processes get slowed down when there's too much oxidative stress. And mercury, for example, is such a heavy burden that when it's high in somebody, they're going to have neurological problems. They're going to have energy problems, fatigue, chronic fatigue, maybe pain from nerve pain. It could be so many problems that come because the cell is just so stressed out because it can't do its normal function because it's overly burdened. So chelation, The therapy called chelation is a molecule. It's a simple molecule that is like a claw, basically like two sides that are the same, that in the middle have a binding site, and that binding site binds to cationic metals. So, including mercury, including lead, including iron, which iron is a cation, calcium is a cation, zinc is a cation. So, these cations in our body get bound to these chelation molecules. So, even good minerals too. So, that's one of the issues with chelation. It's not a big issue because, in the end of the day, you just replenish the good minerals. So, over time, through chelation, you're basically taking these drugs or this molecule that goes into the body and binds to these metals. And it binds them and neutralizes them and then removes them and puts them into circulation again and then removes them through the kidney or through the liver. And so chelation is a therapy that is very, very specific at binding metals and then removing them or neutralizing them. And then one chelation might be better than another for specific metals. There's some that are really good at getting lead out, and that one's called EDTA. And that's one of the main medicines that we use with chelation doctors. EDTA is the oldest and most popular chelation drug, and that's been used very successfully to remove lead from people when they had high lead toxicity. And what was shown back in the 60s and 70s in the TAC trials, these the studies that were done to establish chelation therapy as a very well documented and a therapy that's used for removing heavy metals. Back then, when they used this EDTA to remove lead, people's diabetes, heart disease went away, like fully. So it was the main cause of people's diabetes was lead back then. And only people who did chelation were able to see that because they actually got better. But nowadays, people who do chelation with EDTA don't necessarily get the same result that they did back then because the problem with their metabolism is not necessarily due to lead. EDTA is great at removing lead, but it doesn't work to cure diabetes and heart disease if that's not the cause. Metabolic disorders. Metabolic, going back down to the cell, back down to the stress on the cell, oxidative stress being the stress that's leading to metabolic disease.
Okay, so I have so many questions right now, but did you want to finish that thought a little bit?
Nope. I mean, okay. I think I kind of tried to hone it down to what is those molecules, what is chelation.
Where is mercury stored within the body or within the cells?
It's attracted to the fat mostly, so it's in the fat tissue mostly, and also in the brain. So mercury over time ends up in the brain where it's actually really, really hard for it to ever leave the body. The half-life of mercury once it's in the brain is like 70 years. It's a crazy number.
Whoa. Okay, so because mercury is a problem for most of us, that's more relevant than maybe lead, though lead probably is still in us. What is the way that you would detox it?
So that's a good question because everybody can detox naturally. All have a natural cellular detox pathway. So everybody can detox from mercury. The problem is when it gets into the brain. It can still be detoxed, but it just takes like years and years because it's slow, because it's so attracted to the fat in the brain that it bioaccumulates. So over time, it actually accumulates faster than it detoxes, which is the problem with mercury. But some people actually detox better than others. So that's why you actually can have two different patients, one with severe mercury symptoms and one without severe mercury symptoms, and they both have maybe the same level. Maybe even the one with mercury symptom has less body burden of mercury than the person who has no symptoms. So that's where it becomes the genetic differences. And actually we test for that. So I've tested people and to see why is this person, it was something I discovered on my own. It was not something I really studied in school that to show weight, the difference why some people are detoxing better than others, but it makes sense. Some people's detox pathways have what's called SNPs and they just don't have good genetics there and they're slow in those pathways. One of them is MTHFR. I don't know if you've heard of that gene. It's a common gene people have been talking about in like the popular health circles. That MTHFR gene is responsible for a lot. It's responsible for a lot of people who have fatigue. And they blame this gene, that the fact that they have a SNP in this gene, their body is having a hard time methylating on a cellular level. And that methylation process is one of the things that is used to detox. Because in order to tag and then recognize a toxic molecule in the cell, methylation is part of that. And so what it is just this little group called a methyl group has to transfer from one molecule to another. And in the cell, that happens through this gene called the MTHFR, methyl tetrahydrofolate reductase. So that gene is involved in just transferring methyl groups from one thing to another in order to move things along the metabolic path, in order to maybe detox them or to use it for energy or to use that B vitamin in order to get the activity done from it and then recycle it. So methylation does a lot of things. It's like 500 different processes in the cell require it. So that MTHFR gene being slowed down for some people makes it so that process is just not as efficient. And they get fatigued. They get autoimmune conditions more likely, more easily. And then they also have multiple chemical sensitivity. Big surprise or no? To me, it's not, because what it shows is the fact that they're sensitive to more chemicals is just that. It's the fact that their cells are having a hard time and they're accumulating so much toxicity, and then they have that slower process of removing it. So they're more stressed out. Their cells are more stressed out. Their immune system gets more stressed out. These people with MTHFR, it's like underlies so many diseases. But why? Because if a person who has that gene is living in, let's say, a pristine forest in northern Canada, and they're living a pure lifestyle and they sleep many hours a day and they eat plenty of nutrient dense food and they don't have a lot of stress, MTHFR doesn't matter. They live a normal life because they're not having that extra stress that's accumulating. So you compare them to anyone else without the gene issue, in that environment, they're fine. But you put them in a stressful environment like a city where they have to work every day and then there's that smog in the air. Now they're like burdened with having to detox from the smog, having to deal with the stress. Now they didn't get enough sleep last night. Now it's catching up to them. That person is much more stressed out than someone else. Same thing when it comes to detoxing from mercury. They're slower at detoxing from mercury than another person. There's other genes involved in this detox pathways, but that's just an example that that person needs extra help. It's actually not that difficult to treat MTHFR, the gene deficiency, because what it is methylation. So what can we do? We actually can give a supplement that provides methyl groups in like a bolus to the cell, attached to vitamin, attached to a B vitamin. So you can actually attach the methyl group already to the folate, to the methyl folate, and to the B vitamin, the B12, and give that supplement, and it supplements their cells with the methyl group, and it actually bypasses the MTHFR deficiency. So there's ways around it where they would actually, now if you just supplement that, they live normally just like anyone because they're bypassing that gene. So that's actually a way.
How would you tell if you had that issue?
There's to really just definitively know, you do a genetic test, and it shows. There's even like tests that are, you don't have to test the whole gene. You could just go do a blood test for that, and they'll look for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a
And
blood test could too.
A blood test, yep. What's a specific blood test that is not specific actually? It's a test that's screening, is called homocysteine. If someone has very high homocysteine, they likely have MTHFR because homocysteine goes very high when they're not methylating. So by providing the methyl group, now you just test homocysteine, and if it goes down, that means the supplement you're using is working and their homocysteine is regulated. That's just like a cellular metabolite that can be tested.
If someone thinks that they have high mercury, Like, what would you advise them to do?
Yeah, so everything we're talking about here is basically what I'm advising. Learn about your cellular health. Learn if you have MTHFR, if you have symptoms of fatigue and you have that neurologic weird stuff going on or autoimmune stuff going on. You do want to know if you have MTHFR. It does help to understand like why. That's a very underlying reason for a lot of these cases as to why it's happening. And if you could just take that supplement of a B vitamin with the methyl group, it's really like it's not that expensive to do that. And it's good to take supplements anyway with good vitamins. But how could someone, what was the question? How could someone detox or how could someone know that they have mercury?
Yeah. How would we
And then,
just, if someone's like, maybe I have high mercury, like, A, how would they know? And then B, what would you advise them to do?
yeah, so to know, you do a test. At chelation doctors, we do a test called a provocation test. It's a urine test. And this is like the definitive way to know your levels of mercury and then to test later on to show how they're going down.
Okay.
Because there is no test of the blood to show mercury because it doesn't really just circulate in the blood. If it's in the body, it's in the tissues, it's stored. It's hiding. So it doesn't really go in the blood. You can't do a blood test to see mercury. So you do a urine test. So the way that the provocation testing works, it's from doctor's data. It's a lab that is a urine test, and what you do is there's two parts. You pee in a cup, and then you collect that sample, and then you do the second part, which you have to do it in a clinic that offers chelation because they actually give you chelation that day, a little dose of it for that, so that the next 6 hours you actually go and pee and collect it in a tub, in a jug, and then you take a sample of that urine and you have two samples of urine before and after, and then you send that to the lab and they send you back two reports. One is before and after, and then you see before when you peed, you might show some metals. Some of the metals are coming out every day because we're always detoxing, we're always removing, we're always releasing them as they're in our body, we're getting rid of them as well. That process is slow, but it is happening all the time. And so it does come out in the urine, and you see it on the random urine, the first one. Then the second one, what's crazy is you're going to see them all high. If you have high levels of lead, the thing is going to be high. If you have high levels of mercury, it's going to be high. And then you're going to see the difference. Why didn't it show up high on the first one, but it showed up high on the second one? Clearly because we were pooling it with the chelation drug. So that drug is actually part of the test. We're using it to test because now we're actually seeing how much burden of this toxic metal is in the body hidden that we're actually pulling out now, right?
Yeah.
With this drug. And now
And
that
these
we see it,
and these metals are hiding in the fat. So when people are going on, like, they just
or the
start
bone or
sauning.
the tissue, yeah, they're all hiding. The lead is in the bone, for example, but
Okay.
the mercury is in the fat. Yeah. Uh-huh.
So when people are losing weight and they're starting to get some weird symptoms, this
hmm
can be an opportunity for them to kind of dialogue deeper with the body and cleanse it a little bit deeper. So my audience that's training with me, I see them, what a cute puppers. I see them building a tension map within the body and running into solid spots. And in those solid spots or in those electrical spots, do you sense that they're kind of mapping out maybe heavy metals that have been hidden within the tissues?
Yeah, you're kind of making me think about what could be going on there, and it does sound like there could be a relationship there. But what I'm more thinking, what you're getting at here is what you talk about is the fascia, right? You have the fascia, you have the muscle, but then there's another component that I love this stuff, by the way. There's the neural component, okay? When you have a muscle that is super, super strong and tense, yes, there's knotted fascia, there is adhesions and stuck glue-like hardness and calcification, which is that's in the tissue, that's in the muscle, that's in the fascia. But then there's one more thing. There's the neuro. And then that's the part where the nerve is actually also guarding and strong and holding on and making that muscle stay in a contracted state. So that's kind of like a nervous anxiety or like a nervous tension, right? I think that's part of it. I would say that's part of it, It's not necessarily the whole thing. I think what you're feeling sometimes too with the hardness could be that calcification, could be the
Yeah.
arteries are getting hard. Yeah, it's just that lack of juiciness. Mainly, that's a big part of it is the lack of the hydration and juiciness. But neural
Yeah.
myofascia, so the muscle could be the muscle that's just so strong and so tense, and that's the nerve, being that the nerve is just in a state of anxiety, in a state of high contractility, contracted tension.
How do the heavy metals interact in the tissue? Like, do they mess with the nerves?
Yes, because in fact, Mercury's main problem is that it affects the nerves. It affects people it leads to nervous problems like pain, nerve pain, neurodegenerative diseases, inflammation of the nerves, autoimmune conditions of the nervous system. So that does sound like there is some sort of thing going on there if the person is toxic. But in the end, the cause is still oxidative stress, and it's still toxicity of whatever kind. It might not be mercury. It could just be that they're toxic and they just have lactic acids built up so long and just calcified, and that area has become guarded and protected by the body for some reason.
You
The body
mentioned the
does that.
word,
It builds calcium sometimes as protection.
yeah, like a turtle shell. You can see
Mm-hmm.
people who are guarded, like in how they wear their spine and their posture and
Right.
even their eyes will be like less jumpy about a room, and they'll be kind of like tunnel visioned into certain
I
things.
know. And that is really hard to reverse. At that point, I mean, that's something that should have been prevented when someone is to the level of calcified, like having their toe, like how the toe on the foot, sometimes the big toe for some people like goes
Hmm.
in and it just permanently like looks like that.
Yeah.
And because the bone here is reforming and reshaping and calcifying in that direction because of their posture, because of the lack of proper movement over time. You can't reverse that. Once the toe is so bad like that, not even surgery. Like you're gonna go in there and scrape and shave and remove the bone just to straighten the toe. It doesn't work. In fact, you're gonna cause more problems, more pain. So these kind of things that you're mentioning, like with that hard calcified hard um, result from years and years of improper movement, probably.
One of the first things that I ask my clients to do is to sauna and to improve their quality of water in order to
Hmm.
help the body palpate deeper and start to move. If you were to add something to that sequence to encourage the body to detox, what would it be?
Oh, wow, I love that pure water. Like that's a big one. We don't have good water in our Florida water. We have to be drinking purified water. But
This
what do I add? Wow. So what do you
this is
add? Let me ask you. What do you do? You're the one.
well, I mean, like the water conversation is so epically long, but I would love to introduce you to this. This is a flagship business made by Dr. Richard Nahas. It's structured water from a Canadian spring has been passed through an
Wow.
ozone. And he built this like huge crystal quartz instrument that makes the water hum as it passes through it. And so far, I can't get this open. His bottles are holding the structure for like up to 3 years. So that's been the best I could find, but it's from Canada.
That's
So
so cool. I love that stuff. Like, as much as we can't really like describe or show the structure of water, I've learned about that so many years ago and I've always been fascinated by it. So how do they measure that? They can measure the structure of the water?
it's weird. I had him on a podcast and I asked him that question too. And he gave me like this very amorphous answer of like, we can't quite. And I'm like, so then how do you know if it's structured or not? So they're using like a version of crystallography where they're icing it and then checking the
Oh,
structure from beginning
okay.
and
Like the
after. So
Masaru
they're,
Himoto stuff.
yeah. Or have you
That's
seen Veda
cool.
Austin's stuff? She's like next, I feel like she's the next gen. I'll have to introduce you. She's listening to the consciousness of water instead of telling the water what to do. And so she's found that during the freezing processes, there's a language that's coming out. You'd be into it. But back to the detox protocol, it's like
Hmm.
I think sauna can remove everything, but I know it really can't.
No, but I think you're getting to something. I like sauna. It definitely is part of it. Yeah. Sauna is one of the things I would recommend to someone who's doing chelation or detox in any way. It's definitely good because heat mobilizes stuff. Heat just gets things moving, molecules. We got to get into the cell. We got to get the cell to do its job better, and heat improves that process. It can speed up the metabolism a little bit. The light therapy is good for that. Skin brushing, the dry skin brushing, and just movement in general. Drinking the best water, of course, is good.
Coconut
Staying
water
really
would be in
hydrated.
that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Coconut water, I would say, is the most pure structured water of all. It comes
Yeah.
through the tree, it spirals up the
Yeah.
xylem and the phloem, and then it ends up in a coconut up in the tree in the top. So that's like, to me, it's like heaven, right?
Yeah.
Anything up like that, it's like we're talking about the water from heaven here. So that's coconut water to me. So I love structured water and all that stuff with people doing these cool projects. It's really, they're using sacred geometry, right, to structure water. So I'm for that because in the end, God made sacred geometry. It's not something we made. So at least we're still working with like the infinite field, right? We're working with the field around us to try to do something better. I don't really understand how like water holds the structure and it keeps it and then it goes in our body. Like that stuff is cool, but it's super beyond any science that we have at this point. Which I like to know evidence. I like to understand things. I like to really know what's going on here. Why does this work? That's actually why I love the chelation therapy. It just makes so much sense to me. It actually is one of the best researched type of drugs out there because, so many drugs have other side effects that have problems. But when it comes to this, it's very simple. You're going into the body with a molecule that doesn't react in any way with anything else. It just literally binds to these metals. And that's why I consider it a miracle because up until now, there has never been any molecule or any drug that can bind mercury. And the new drug that I'm talking about actually is called Amaramide. It's founded by a chemist recently in the last few years who his name is Dr. Boyd. He was determined through his years of understanding that mercury is a problem, learning through the dentistry industry and how that industry is causing problems with mercury. That's another source of mercury is actually dental amalgams. It's actually one of the worst sources because it causes the person to have huge burden in their body with mercury in like one big dose, especially in the process of putting it in. And then let's say they say, I don't want the mercury in my mouth anymore. Taking it out is also a huge problem because they're getting so much exposure in those procedures. So the problem is that mercury has never been able to get out of the body easily. Even if somebody's good at detoxing and they're healthy, they have a high dose of mercury, they're going to have a lot of neurological problems and just fatigue and pain or issues from the mercury. Well, now there's a drug. This guy, he said, I'm determined to make a chelation for mercury. He discovered it. He actually made a few different molecules that he thought were going to work, tested a list of different potential chemical bonds that he made that he basically was like, this is what I think would work. He found the exact thing that would work. He tested it on animals. It's been tested in vivo, in vitro, and the studies already in humans are also done. It's incredible how it works because it goes into the brain too. So even EDTA, the previous chelation drug that was very popular before, doesn't enter the brain. That's one of the problems with it. It works everywhere in the body, but it's okay because lead doesn't go to the brain much. It was in the bones. But because mercury's in the brain, we needed a chelation that can go into cross the blood-brain barrier. And so now this drug, amaramide, is able to do that, and it can go into the cell and it neutralizes mercury everywhere in the body. So it's a miracle because no other drug has been able to do it, and it has no other side effects, and it reduces that body burden of mercury. So this drug, if it was being used on a wide level by the medical industry and just covered by insurance and everything, people would be getting better from a lot of different diseases right now. The problem is that it's not covered by insurance, and right now doctors don't even know about it. And even if they did, they would probably say, oh, that's chelation. That's not a therapy that insurance covers, and they don't believe in it. They don't even know about it because it was faded out actually after lead was no longer a problem. Chelation just was never really considered anymore. Until now, I'm with Chelation Doctors, me and Sergio, we're working to bring this back because there's other benefits to using EDTA. There are still people with lead, so they have no access to this therapy. So we're bringing this therapy online and bringing it to clinics near them. That's the whole idea. But
I have
now with
a
this new drug, I can do this on my own, and I can do this in a way where I don't need to use IV therapy because this one can be done orally. So there's a new paradigm in chelation therapy coming up with this.
This is so exciting. So it's an
I
oral medicine and they
mhm,
don't need to be in a clinic and it's hones in on mercury, which the other ones don't, right?
you got it. That's exactly it.
That's that's going to be huge. And I'm so sorry that you're delivering it with like a it's such an exciting thing, but to like you can hear the regulation. Like you're just trying to stay in regulation in how you're even talking about it with me.
Yeah.
And I love you for that. Like thank you. You might be the only person on the internet really talking about it right now.
There is a few that the reason I found out about it was I met this woman who, have you heard of the Erin Brockovich? You remember that story?
Yeah, totally.
This lady I met is the Erin Brockovich of Mercury. She has like
Interesting.
tons and tons of research and she's done so many podcasts on this subject and she's the leading like researcher in investigative research around mercury. So I met her at a conference where it was a naturopathic legislative event, and she basically explained to me what her whole mission is in life is basically to tell people about mercury and the problems with it and the problems with the whole dental industry. And now she's the one who introduced me to this research from this Dr. Boyd and this new molecule. And she told me this is where I can buy it, so I have access to it. Now the only issue is how can I sell it because it's technically not FDA approved for removing
Mm-hmm.
mercury. So that's the problem. I have to kind of. It's about education, you know. If somebody really wants to remove mercury and to understand that they have to understand that there's a level of care we have to use when talking about how to use these things as they are researched, but then sell it to somebody carefully.
It's funny. I feel like you can go through your whole life as a doctor just looking for a solution or something that you believe in, and then to find it and then to feel quelled
Can you believe
by
it?
the legislation and by the licensure. And I know how interesting it was when you moved back here from Alaska. I was like, yay, Florida finally has a naturopath. And then just realizing, oh my God, like you're the only naturopath here. Like we have our fair share of chiropractors, but there's so many more voices in this authoritative market of healers in this area.
Hmm.
And I find that both like an honorable position for you to hold as beacon of naturopathia like in our area, and at the same time very tragic and sad. And I just want to let you know that I'm really proud of you for choosing
Oh,
the path that like you needed to choose, not the easy one.
I didn't realize this at first, but it is not the easy one, that's for sure.
Yeah, and that's okay because I think that um,
But
people like
maybe with
me
your help, yeah, with
it
your
can
help.
lay the groundwork and take
Hmm.
your very scientific language and make it a little bit more playful or a little bit more practical. I feel like I'm operating as translator in a lot of these podcasts where I have a brilliant doctor in front of me or a brilliant therapist or a brilliant athlete and they're kind of talking in riddles. My job is to kind of like unweave the web a little bit so it's a little like simpler, a little practical so that they can see the hope, because hope exists in everything that you just said.
I know, I can feel it too. And I've been like working on different businesses, trying to figure out what is the best approach here. At this point, meeting Sergio has been a blessing because he is the 70-year-old medical doctor who me and him have become like family. He trusts me and he loves what I do in naturopathic medicine. And he's somebody who, at his age, is adapting this new paradigm of thinking, from being a medical doctor from the ER. He works in the ER all his career, now becoming a functional naturopath style detox medicine doctor. So working with him is really cool because it gives me a little bit of protection, I guess. If I wanted to really start a business with him, he would back me up. But it's a little bit like tricky because, I have to be careful. I don't want to step on his toes or take advantage of his license. So we're taking it one step at a time with chelation doctors, and we're creating a portal in there for me to do naturopathic consults with just like educational based kind of consults, and people can select that service, and it would be separate from the chelation side.
Yeah.
So I do really appreciate that he's been able to take me under his license and let me do a lot of things. We're even thinking of maybe considering hormone therapy as well. He's never
Okay.
done the hormone stuff, but I like it.
Mm-hmm.
So I might consider, being also one of those hormone replacement clinics that helps people just feel good and have that longevity feeling of like, oh, I still feel young.
Your mic just stopped, bud.
Yeah, I was getting a call.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
So yeah, the hormone therapy stuff's cool too. I like it.
I kind of want to ask you some bullet point questions.
Hmm.
All
Go
right, so I'm
for it.
gonna like list a few. What's your personal relationship with anxiety, and how has detoxed influenced it?
Good question. Anxiety is something that I think everyone has. It's kind of like a spectrum of, we all have depression, anxiety on one end, on the other, right? And in the middle is like that homeostasis, that balance where you're just calm, right? So everybody has the ability to go from anxiety down to calm, or from depression, feeling like they don't want to do anything, to feeling like they want to do something. I think of them as the same thing, you know? And so, how does this lead, talking about detox, how does that relate? Feeling fatigue, when you have fatigue all the time, when you're tired all the time and you don't have energy, that leads to anxiety. That leads to depression. It could be either way. It could go both ways. It depends on the person and their personality and their energy level, or their amount of energy in their bodies. So like all of that kind of ties together. Depression, anxiety to me is metabolic in the end of the day. Like you're talking about, okay, maybe not everybody. Fine, there's circumstantial, right? Like having a fearful moment because of a life circumstance, that's something that someone needs to deal with. That's a different type of anxiety. That's actually, I call that, shoot, hold on, like having problems, and you have to deal with your problems. Like people want to say that that's anxiety, but sometimes they're just not dealing with the things that they need to deal with. Procrastination can lead to anxiety, but that's just you're not actually doing the thing that your spirit is telling you to do. That's another form of anxiety. That could come from lethargy, or just not being lazy, sin, just like not caring. But if you're talking about from like a cellular level and like detox level, and what can we do with our health to improve those anxiety, there's a lot. I think that is, separate from the circumstantial. That, yeah, like if you're not sleeping well, that's anxiety, right? If you can't sleep at night and you're just up thinking, racing thoughts, that's anxiety. And that's either you're not dealing with the problem, you have an issue or some problem, you're not dealing with it. That's one thing. But then there's fatigue and your body's inability to keep up, and then you feel toxic, or your brain is like inflamed. That that can be from toxicity, sure. And then how do you
um,
deal with it? Maybe it's the MTHFR thing. Take a vitamin that helps boost your metabolic cellular health. From, if somebody's sluggish in that MTHFR, they need that supplement. So you know what? When it comes to that, I actually don't always test, because if you could just give the supplement and then you notice you feel like so much better, then why test when you could just take a vitamin that is natural and good anyway and just feel good and not need to like know everything about your genes. You know what I
I
mean?
would, yeah,
Like
that's more
you
like
can
my style.
probably know yourself better without needing to test, right? Everybody knows themselves. So with a few questions, I can kind of like deduce whether someone has that issue or not.
Have you seen a personality shift after chelating and detox?
Definitely, definitely. More energy, more so, feeling of like feeling lighter, feeling happy. Yeah, I've noticed that definitely. Especially if it was the thing that was needed for that person. Some
Mm-hmm.
people just do it when they don't need it, and I've seen that a lot where people just want chelation and then they trick themselves or whatever therapy, right? IV therapy or ozone therapy or these therapies all work, but they're not drugs. So they're not like something that you do and then you feel great right after. If you do, that could be kind of a placebo effect because none of these things are actually like drugs. They're working with your body to help improve your own normal functions. So if you feel good after, then that's because you naturally feel good and you just want to get back to that. It's because yeah, if you're toxic, you're not going to feel happy. Then if you remove the toxicity, yeah, of course it's going to help and you feel happier.
What is a common product at home that you wish everybody would throw away?
That's old supplements. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, I mean, nobody should have those sitting around forever. Like, what's the point of having it sitting there? I know this. Soy, any soy products, just get rid of that. Yeah, vegetables. No, I'm kidding. Beans, do you eat beans still? Yeah, I don't know.
I
Um,
went through a period of time where I loved rice and lentils, and I think
mhm.
I overdid it because, like, I can't do any. If I do beans, they're baked beans next to like cornbread and ribs on a southern night of food. But I do so much more. If I do like a legume protein, it's like peas or it's quinoa nowadays. What about you? I'm eating meat. I'm eating all the meat.
Oh yeah, I eat meat. I'm a meater. Fruit, and lately it's been mango season here.
Oh, yeah.
So I literally am like just eating mango. I mean, kind of fasting on mango for most of the day, and then I might have like a piece of steak later. And I've been
Can
eating
we
my steaks raw.
all the way raw? Like 100% raw?
Yes, actually.
Really?
Sometimes, not every time, but sometimes. And I like it more now.
Interesting.
But
I
I'm
have a good
I'm
meat guy
cutting
up
it up
here.
and I'm doing it all like a beef tartare. So I'm still
Yeah.
like not just chunk like ripping into it,
Arr, arr.
but I'm almost there. I'm almost at that point where I'm just hungry. I'm just gonna eat it
That's
instead of
hilarious.
like the process of the tartare, which when I do the whole tartare thing and I have
Yeah.
my parsley and mustard and all the little onion and stuff, in the end I like the taste of the meat by itself.
Your mouth is watering. I can like see it. My passion fruits have been going nuts this year. I've been eating passion fruits like for
Love
lunch
passion fruit. Oh,
straight. I gotta get you one of the seeds of this vine. It's like a mother vine that's taken over a whole canopy. You need to have
and
at
it
least two of
really,
these.
whoa, and it grows well, like just from the seed.
Yeah, it's taken over my guava tree. I actually have to like relocate it after this harvest. But I just go outside and it's like Christmas ornaments are like all over the ground. I mean, they drop just like the mangoes do, but with that hard shell and oh,
Wow.
it's spectacular.
And you just put them on a trellis or something and they grow up on the
Yeah,
trellis
it's the
or
size of like a tree. When I relocate it, I'm gonna make it like on my fence and then climb on my roof because it's just, I mean, it's gigantic. She's so happy. She's the happiest passion fruit I've ever seen.
wow. And where it roots down is the stem like a thick
Yeah, it's
trunk?
thick and it's barky. And
Wow, yeah.
I mean, they
I've
look
never
like
grown a
banyan
passion
ropes.
fruit, but I love
Yeah,
passion fruit.
I'll have to bring you some, Bernie. It's awesome. I want to ask you a few more questions. What is your take on aluminum in deodorants, cookware, or vaccines?
Toxic.
Okay.
It's not supposed to be there, but it is.
Mm-hmm.
Cookware, right? Like just don't use that cookware. Use iron. Use stainless steel. But even stainless steel has some aluminum, so like you can't scrape it. You can't really. But yeah, just iron pan is the way to go.
I have glassware that I found at
Glass
like
is
a
good.
thrift
Wow,
store.
nice.
Yeah, and
And you bake with it or what?
I have like a pan and I have two pots that are different sizes. And they're kind of pricey, but I found them at thrift stores for like, $10 for the pot. And
What's the
over time,
trick
I
to
built
like
up my set.
And do you have to have like, does it develop a coat layer, or is it just you have to clean it to the
No, you
pure
have to
glass?
clean it, and I gotta tell you, it's so easy to burn eggs. Like, it takes a little bit
Yeah,
of knack to learn how to cook
yeah,
in them because it definitely distributes the heat a little faster and quicker and different.
right. Yeah, you gotta like do it really low and like let it warm up evenly somehow and just cook low, right?
So
So
funny.
things don't stick.
Yeah, I make everything stick. I just like I'm committed to the overnight soak.
Okay. No, it's not a big
Which
deal.
is
Whatever,
not
it
for
sticks a
everybody.
little.
I'm
Yeah,
not a
yeah.
great cook, but I cook clean. It's like between juices and my glass pots, I'm kind of good that way.
Cool.
That's funny.
I like the glass.
Yeah, the glass is good. I
I just
wanted
have
to
tried
ask
it
you.
and it was hard to use because it just things.
Yeah, I commit to that little stick. I'm just like, it's all right. I mean,
It's okay. Yeah, it's
yeah.
totally all right.
When we had originally talked, you had mentioned this word I was unfamiliar with:
Oh,
cellular molecular detoxing. Molecular
yeah.
detoxing.
So I mean that's what we were getting at. That's what chelation is. It's a molecule
Okay.
and it goes in the cell and it detoxes.
Perfect. So
So
we hit it
cellular,
and we,
we did,
yes.
but then there's a little more because you mentioned ozone, with your
Mhm.
water. Ozone therapy, you know what that is? You know how people do ozone therapy?
I would love to know your explanation of it. I know it in the sense of a video, but that's about all.
Yeah, there's a few like clinics doing different ways. The basic, simplest way. Okay, let's just get at what is ozone. It's a gas, right? It's oxygen gas that is where you get oxygen from a pure oxygen tank. You run it with a little tube through a machine that electrifies the oxygen gas like lightning, literally just sends lightning into the gas, and that lightning turns the oxygen into ozone, O3. So what is ozone? The air we breathe, O2, oxygen that you breathe is neutral oxygen. It's not so intense of an oxidative molecule. And oxidative stress, that's what this word comes from. Now, when you electrify the oxygen, you make it more electrical and it causes more, if it goes into your body, it's toxic and kills bacteria. It kills parasites, it kills fungus. It's so toxic that it destroys those creatures. It can destroy their metabolism because it's this oxygen is active now. It has a third oxygen that's reacting and it's doing this on the two oxygens and the three. They're like the three are now doing this. And the moment they go in the body, that oxygen is going to be donated and given like it gives electricity,
So
but it
an
actually is like
antioxidant.
shocking. It shocks. Yeah, no, it's pro-oxidant.
That's so
It's
interesting.
oxidant.
Yeah.
Yeah, ozone is an oxidant.
Back from a quick potty break in a unexpected location change, but we were just talking about ozone and you were describing it as lightning inside of an oxygen tank. Can we get back there?
Yeah, you had mentioned it earlier, so I was kind of curious what you knew about ozone. So the ozone is pretty cool. It's a therapy that actually the partner clinic we work with, that's their specialty. They work with ozone here in Miami. And the doctor who does it, she's like one of the top leading ozone doctors in the world. She wrote the Madrid Declaration on ozone, which is like a it's like one of the conferences that happens in Spain, and she's from Venezuela, and she's a top doctor in the field of ozone, and she's published papers and research and has three different clinics here in Miami, and she happens to be our partner where we offer the chelation services through. So right now she's the first clinic that offers our therapies. And she does ozone. So ozone is like one of the most interesting therapies that I've come across throughout my career. It's oxygen gas. It's using oxygen to infuse the oxygen gas through the blood to have like an antimicrobial effect on the body. But more than that, it's so interesting because you know the word hormesis. Have you ever heard the word hormesis or a hormetic effect?
I've heard of hermetic, but not hormetic.
What is hermetic? No, no, not
Like
hermetic.
Hermes.
No, not hermic. It's funny, that's similar word. But no, hormetic is a it's like homeopathic. So hormetic means where you're giving a stress to the body, like like in a hot sauna, heat therapy. You're giving heat as a stress to the body for the body to have a hormetic effect, which is the rebound that the body does to have heat shock proteins that are now the effect of the stress from heat on the body to help repair and to help with healing. So the same thing happens with any toxin in a small dose. Whenever you give any toxic substance in a tiny, tiny dose, the body has a response to it, or any toxin in general. When you give oxidative stress in the form of ozone, the body on the cellular level has a response to it. And what does the cell do? It generates more antioxidant. So your body, when it gets a shot of ozone that is pro-oxidant, it actually has to do the rebound in order to defend itself. And it's such a shock. The ozone is like a lightning shock of molecular energy that is pro-oxidant, and it's gas and it's oxygen, so it's so instant and so fast and flash. It's a flash of oxidant stress when you do the gas infused into the blood. And that's what this ozone therapy does, is it infuses the gas into a liquid or your blood. You could do it different ways. You infuse the gas in the blood and then re-inject the blood back into the body with the gas infused. It's weird. I had to like kind of wrap my mind around what is this. I can't hear you.
What about now?
There.
So you take the blood out, you're infusing
You
it with this lightning gas oxygen, and then you put the blood back in.
That's one way to do it. There's another way. You could infuse the gas into a water, like a pure water, like a saline solution, and then just infuse the water that has the gas infused, which to me that I had to wrap my mind around. How is this gas bubbling into this water and then the water has the gas? Yes, when you bubble any gas into a liquid, the bubble is suspended in the liquid and the gas is in between the water molecules. So that gas, that ozone gas, is actually in the water in a form of gas. And the gas is infused through the water into your vein. You could also just inject the ozone gas into a bag of your blood. So you could take your blood, put it in a bag, like a sterile bag, and then infuse a gas of ozone, like a liter of gas in a tube. You just inject the whole gas into the bag, you shake it up. The blood changes color instantly when you do that. You get to see it in front of your eyes. So some clinics do it that way. They put the blood inside a bag and then you watch the blood change color and then you get it infused right back in.
What
What
color
does it do?
It change into?
Super bright red, like brighter than ketchup red. When it comes out, it's brown. It looks brown because when your blood is when you're taking blood out, you're actually taking it from a vein. Whenever you take blood out, anytime, it's always from a vein, so it's going to be dark. If you were to take blood from an artery, it would be bright because it's oxygenated from our breath. But when you take it from a vein, it already went through all the tissue and released oxygen. Now it has to go back to the lung to replenish its oxygen, so it's brown. But if you put ozone gas in it, it turns bright red. So the blood is changing color in your heart, in your lung actually, from your heart to your lung, changes to bright red, and then to your body, and then brown. When we take it out, it's brown. But then you infuse ozone into it, which it's trippy. This whole ozone therapy thing, it's like mind blowing actually when you get down to the whole hormetic effect. Okay, fine. There's another effect, the antimicrobial, because the oxidative stress is killing bacteria. It kills parasites, bacteria, and funguses instantly when it touches them. Why doesn't it kill our cells? Why doesn't the ozone hurt us when it goes in our body? It's causing oxidative stress, but our cells have a unique, well, not unique, but for mammals, all mammals have this unique ability to make glutathione. Glutathione is a molecule inside our cell that is an antioxidant. Have you heard of that? Every cell in your body makes glutathione all day long in order to deal with oxidative stress. And there's a gene involved with that too, COMT. And there's a couple genes that are involved in using in the body making good amounts of glutathione. If those genes are compromised, that goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Same thing I do a test called toxin genetics. It's a genetic test that only looks at certain genes, only the genes involved in the detox pathways, which is, it goes well with the chelation therapy, because when I test that, it's going to tell me whether or not someone is good detoxer naturally without anything. So I can actually see who's better at detoxing than someone else by looking at the genes.
Are there other indicators, like somebody who sweats really good or somebody who doesn't, or BO or bad breath? Are there other indicators of bad detoxers?
Actually, that's a great question, and I don't know if there's like specific tests for that, but you're basically touching on exactly what I'm talking about from the cellular detox. Now you're talking about organ detox, and yes, pathways of elimination, sweat, your liver, your kidneys, all of those things have to work well. Some people do sweat more than others. I mean, yeah, maybe they sweat out more toxins, but
Yeah.
why do they sweat more? Maybe they are very toxic and they just sweat more. I don't know. I'm the type who doesn't sweat that much compared to my own brother, who's, he's a super sweaty guy. It's like a huge difference from me and my own brother. Like he does great in the desert in Arizona, and I feel like a raisin. And then here in the humidity, he gets kind of like skin rashes and fungal stuff. Whereas I love the humidity. I feel great with humidity. So the skin thing, I mean, the sweat, I think, yeah, there are, nuances there with detox, but yeah, like that's a cool question. I'm sure. And that's why the sauna does really help some people. Maybe if they don't sweat much, you just
Yeah.
recommend doing more sauna for that person if you think that they need to sweat more.
I'm always thinking about a 15-year-old Bernie. Well, I just think about the seeking, like the people that come across this, maybe 5 years from now or 10 years from now, what could they gather? And, if they're alone in their search, like how can we make art? So when I ask those questions, I'm always thinking about like, man, if I was 15 and I stumbled across this podcast, because I'm
Oh,
looking for, I think that I have, heavy metals and maybe like I can figure out how to get them out. So,
wow, 15, huh? Thinking that much, like
well,
about that? I thought about that stuff when I was around like 18, 19, maybe.
okay,
I was
so
already
whatever,
starting. Yeah, no, I
18,
mean, I
19.
would be impressed with someone who's 15 thinking about that. That would be cool. I actually really am impressed with kids when they are into their health. It's so cool.
We were into our health really young. I think by the time that you and I were 18, 19, 20, we were kind of pushing
Hmm.
into, what does it mean to be healthy? And I know that I always had an more athletic take on it. And you introduced me to a lot of different detox protocols that I didn't know about till you. So I think that we both giggle about eating meat now because we were both so vegan for so long.
It's so funny, right? I know. It's funny. I've noticed that from a lot of people who go through the health like journey in their self, they always kind of go through these diet changes as well. It's common among us to explore and experiment like that.
I think that they all have a degree of usefulness at different like pockets of your cleanliness. So like going vegan, I think is exactly what I needed after
Hmm.
all of the heavy meat and breads and whatnot that were in my diet. I needed to kind of clean up and reshape my palate. It's just been fun to be on this journey. I know that just this last 2 years, I had a toxic overload that you coached me through, and I think others could learn from it too. I got stung by a spider. I
Oh
got bit
yeah.
in the butt cheek by a very poisonous spider. I killed the spider, so we never figured out what it was. And I had done my heart rate elevated within 45 minutes. I was kind of out of control. And then I had full body sweats like I've never experienced in my life. And then everything violently came out of my body, both ends. And I was alone
Wow. Yeah, yeah.
for about an hour. And in the garden, my dog alerted the neighbors. The neighbors came over and carried me inside. And I was so conscious of what my body was describing to me because I got bit by other poisonous creatures before. So I kind of knew the
This
onset.
was the time when you sent me the photo of your swollen face, right?
So
Or was
actually,
that the bee stings?
it was the bee sting
Okay,
that
so
was
I'm
like,
confusing the two. Okay.
yeah. So after the spider bite, the protocol I followed was I just kind of let the medicine rip through me. I was like in deep breathing. I put like a tobacco poultice right on like where the spider had got me. And then when my heart rate had finally settled and my body had like pushed all of the fluids out, I had a little conversation with the Reaper, like, I'm not dying here. Like, this is not my time to go.
Wow. Scary.
Yeah, but you always have the same tools, body tension and breath awareness. And as someone who's done medicine, like, it's always the same tools that pull you through any sense of trauma or drama. Poison is just, like medicine, it kind of touches everything all at once, unless you get, bit in an appendage and it can kind of block itself. So I put RSO on it, took a salt bath, and there was no bruising. There was nothing. Like, most people didn't believe I got bit by a spider, but I knew because of my heart rate and how I had felt in my body for the next 2 weeks that it was a pretty serious intake on my nervous system. And when I was just doing normal beekeeping and got stung twice, I had called you because I had a straight allergic reaction. And I tell this whole story about the spider bite because here I was, a person with no allergy to bees, all of a sudden having developed a huge, severe allergy to bees. And I called you and I told you, the background of the spider bite. And I would love for you to elaborate a little bit about how the immune system works, how there can be a toxic overload, and how, what your body used to handle can't handle anymore because of this.
Yeah, what you're describing is an allergy and how allergies work. Sometimes when it's so the allergen the first time that you were exposed to caused a reaction in your body that caused swelling, and that initially triggered your immune system. It actually primed it. That's a good word. It primed it to recognize this thing as a toxin so that the next time that it appears, your body will react to it even more intensely. And so that's how an allergic response works. But then the next time that you're exposed, you're going to have a more intense reaction because now your body has a lot more of a awareness of that thing. And let's say it's a bee sting and you get stung by multiple at the same time. That's going to cause an overwhelming immune reaction. And what happens is when your immune reacts that intensely, it's called your blood pressure drops and you get sepsis. It's like a sepsis type of experience. So,
what is sepsis?
Sepsis is when your blood is basically with zero blood pressure.
Okay, so it feels like you died.
Yeah, because there's different ways you get sepsis. When you bleed out, like you have no blood left. You bleed out and you have so little blood, no volume, that even if your heart is pumping, there's no blood moving because there's no volume of blood. There's no pressure. Another way you can get it is when you get an infection or inflammation from a sting, your blood vessels all dilate. And when your blood vessels dilate, because that's inflammation is where your blood vessels dilate in a certain area. Like let's say you got stung just here. Your blood vessels dilate there to bring the blood there. And in fact, that area has low pressure because those blood vessels are dilated, so the pressure is lower so that all the blood can end up going there. But if you have sepsis, that means that that's happening all throughout your entire body at the same time. So when all of your blood vessels dilate like this, your pressure is zero because your heart can pump and the blood doesn't move because there's no pressure. And it's the same thing as if you bled out. That's what sepsis is. Yeah. And it happens from, yeah. So that's called septic shock when you have no pressure.
So the way that you described what happened to me, because before the spider bite, I was never allergic. And so after the spider bite, all of a sudden having the allergy, what would you contribute that part to?
That's called immune memory. That's an immune memory response. Your own immune system is the one causing the reaction. Your own immune system is responding to the thing. And it's responding too much because it's overly responding because it remembers that this thing is deadly and toxic, so it has to go and respond by increasing an immune reaction to that area, inflammation. But if you have it everywhere in your body at the same time because the thing is in your blood, and when something's in your blood like a bacteria, it goes everywhere. And when it goes everywhere, your body has no idea how to deal with it, so it causes inflammation at every point at the same time. And that's what's happening when it gets a sting and it's happening in multiple places, now that your body is so aware, hyper aware, it causes that reaction a little too intense, because that's what allergies is. It's a hyper reaction. It's not good. Your body shouldn't be hyper reacting, but that's what it's doing because it's hyper aware. It's like overly strong. It's like attacking way too hard. So it's defending, but the defense is out of balance.
That's beautiful. Thanks. Thanks. The illustrative way to describe the complexity of the immune system is always like something to reach for, because there's two parts of the immune system and it's trainable and it has memory.
And it has breaks. It needs to have the breaks. What happens with a good immune reaction is that it has an area of inflammation, but right around that area, it's stopping the inflammation. It's like actually saying, okay, here it's good, so we need to actually put a block on the inflammation. So there's like these different factors. They're called intrinsic factors, and they are all delicately balancing and playing a game where if the site of injury is releasing this one interleukin, then it triggers the cascade of inflammation. But right over here, it stops it because that's not being released locally in this area. So it's like there's like such a delicate little, and they're called intrinsic factors, and there's a whole like orchestra of them that play together to like regulate the dilation of inflammation and blood flow. Yeah, it's trippy.
This
And
conversation is just, I think, at its precipice. I feel like we could do a several part segment of just kind of diving
for sure,
into your approach and framework of how you
let's
look at
do
health.
it.
It's very different than, what people have been exposed to with a common MD, and how they just kind of, look at the metrics and look at the body. And I feel like opening the conversation of what a different kind of doctorate, a framework that you would layer over a person, and maybe some things, body tension
Yeah.
scans that people can do in order to kind of recalibrate to that centeredness. So I'm going to kind
And
of,
also to like learn what your audience is looking for to hear, and like to hear feedback from them so we can also like fine tune our conversation and maybe like listen more to what they need to know and try to answer some of their questions.
do that. It's you're a wealth of knowledge, and I, as your friend, really appreciate the investment that you've made in your mind the last 16 plus years in
You
this.
could call me an intellectual. Like I'm
Yeah.
not the type that like is built to work hard and like physically like work. I'm like the type who's here to think and to help people understand better things about their health and things about our, yeah, like the spiritual side of it too. I really like to get into all that. So anytime you want to talk more, Brooke, I'm happy to.
I would like to ask you three questions before we kind of land this plane. And I'm going to include your contact information in these show notes. So wherever this is
Cool.
posted, people will be able to get a hold of you in order to continue the conversation and seek your guidance. But if you were given all of the money unlimited amount of money to build or create or research or experiment what it would be, what would you bring to the world?
Good question, because if I had all the money in the world, I would like not want to do anything. I would not want to be here helping others. I honestly would want to just retreat and be on an island somewhere drinking coconuts and fishing and just like chilling. But, you know, like part of me does would tell me like you're not doing what you should be doing. You should be out helping people and doing, educating people and helping the world, because it's like a toxic world out there. And I'm a sensitive person. I don't want to be in a toxic world. I want to be in a very like calm and peaceful and pure place and just like live long and happy. So if I had all the money in the world and I had to help people, what would I do? That's a good question.
The
Then
stipulations
I would,
around it are like, thank you for your honesty. I really appreciate it.
yeah, I would work in finding something like this new chemical that I just talked about today. Like, first of all, let's figure out how to get this one out to the world. Like, I really believe that this is something that I need to get out to more people and start experimenting with. Life is an experiment. So I'll say it like I think. Using this drug to experiment on removing mercury from anyone who's willing to contact me and work with me. Then next, if that works out and the world knows and starts using good therapies and starts healing, like continue finding what works, continue looking for the answer to our health and to live longer and to not be sick and in pain. Like what you're doing with the fascia therapy. That's a big part of my journey was in fascia, understanding the fascia as well, because I think it is a huge stepping block in this whole healing.
You introduced me to fascia. The only reason why I'm even like on the fascia pedestal is because I came to you with a foot problem and you were like, you don't have a foot problem, you have a fascia problem and it's in your calf. And you just flicked me right down another rabbit hole, Bernie.
And you fixed it right away, right?
It took me like a month. It took me a month of research and 2 weeks of experimenting to get rid of the hip click that had always bothered me. And the foot thing went away, within like 10 days or so. But
you realized it was like your whole sport and everything you've done throughout your life has led you to have a little tension there, and now you have to just deal with the tension, and that's it. You find the source of it, right? You find where is the source of the tension, and go up the chain of fascia, and you'll find it.
I'm sorry, I didn't know how much I was ignoring my tissues until you started to palpate my calf, and I was like, oh God, that feels like lightning. And to think of all these other athletes that are completely connected to body mastery, but not actually connected to the palpation of tissues, because we're numbing, we're dulling all the time to push harder and faster and to be more resilient. You learn how to, in a sense, like hack your metabolic systems, because you can push without feeling too much, because you get so into the goal that you kind of turn the internal systems offline. But it's
at the high level, some of these super athletes, though, they already know it without having to understand it, because like naturally, I think we all would, as animals, rub those areas, we rub those areas, we like kind of fidget into like, and a super athlete is very hyper aware, so they somehow roll those tensions out from their tissues by the way that they live, or like, the way they sleep. Maybe they have some people have great genetics, right? So these super athletes, like, they don't have to know. They just naturally like are living, specimen. But some of us who aren't perfect athletes, we have to kind of be aware, where's our little deficiency, our little tweaks, our little area where we get stuck, and
what can we do better? That's always
we always just got to keep thinking and evolving and adapting and trying things.
This is called the Gamma Seeker broadcast because a podcast is just a conversation, but a broadcast is about emitting a field, emitting a frequency, emitting something that outlives us potentially. So in our conversation around gamma, which is this symphony, creative, genius-like mind state that we can, I hope, meld and maintain with longer, what would be your word of advice for somebody on the Gamma Seeker journey to be their most optimal self?
Somebody like us, huh? Okay, so let's think.
Us, but younger. Think of our younger selves, if we could speak to them.
I mean, you're asking me to like come up with a message for them, something that, like a message, right?
It already exists.
Yeah, make sure your water is clean. Make sure your food is clean. Keep at, asking the regulation and the governments to help us keep our food clean, and like whatever RFK guy is doing, like he's on the right track, but we need to be more on top of making sure we're eating and purifying our world. We can't live in a toxic world.
I think it's farming then.
Yeah, we have to get into regenerative agriculture. Regenerative agriculture. There we go. Grass-fed animals, like living on the land and not monocropping soy protein powder, Like we don't live on processed bugs and soy protein powder. We live on natural food that comes from the most basic sources that we've always had. The same old way is the right way. Eggs, butter, cheese, some delicious fruit in season, and whatever looks and is good, and don't overdo anything. Don't overdo any one thing, unless it's fruit and meat.
OD on fruit.
Yeah.
Well, Bernie, today has been just the beginning, I think, for this conversation to be public, but our friendship has been for a long time, and I'm grateful that you take the time out of your day to hang out with me for a while. And I look forward to the fruits of our labor here.
Yeah, yeah. Me too.